Deeply incisive.
The different political forces that we have in the country, we don't seem to really have achieved that minimum political consensus over certain things.
Authentically symbolic and insightful. Behind the Headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charlse Odongotho. All on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field couldn't be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite shows.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
We also have enough air.
It is intellectually engaging.
And you can only become a leader when there are problems. I like that.
The same applies to Rwanda, Burundi. So what are we federating?
Whether rats from another country can be, somebody must be there to hold everybody accountable.
But at the moment, we would rather deal with what we have, make it right.
First of all, we as elites of Uganda we have made Museveni the issue. I can tell him Museveni is not the problem of Uganda. The problems of Uganda are much deeper. We can change the next 20 presidents and we'll still be this roundabout.
Deeply incisive.
The different political forces that we have in the country, we don't seem to really have achieved that minimum political consensus over certain things.
Authentically symbolic and insightful. Behind the Headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charlse Odongotho. All on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
You know, you could just buy a new smartphone from anywhere in Uganda. Dial *175*94# to activate their 100% double data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles for 3 months. Better yet, you automatically receive free 1 GB valid for 30 days. You are hooked already, aren't you? Enjoy 100% double data bonus from Airtel. Buy a smartphone from anywhere in Uganda and insert an Airtel SIM card. Dial *175*94# to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Dial *175# and select your preferred bundle to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Airtel, the smartphone network.
How's life?
A warm welcome this evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. This Wednesday, the 29th of September, the last Wednesday of this month, and 2021 is the year, and we are going to be discussing today to give or not to give bail to murder suspects. We will be also taking a look briefly at the, we shall be remembering the former Chief Justice. This week was, you know, his celebration of his departure from this earth, and with a plaque built in his name and at the High Court of Uganda. And to discuss all this, we have the President General of the Democratic Party, Chairman Norbert Mao. He is here in the studio. Next to him is Counsel Hussein Rugaba Kashilingi, who is a lawyer and advocate and works with Kashilingi Rugaba Associates. Next to him, we have another lawyer who was also a guild president. We have Honorable Asman Basalirwa, the only member of parliament representing Jema Party in the 11th parliament, is in the studio. Finally, we have Counsel Sarah Birete, who is executive director of the Center for Constitutional Governance. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just noticed that actually all of you are lawyers. Now, I need to warn the public and warn you as well that this discussion should not be legalese. It should be the issues as they affect the country, and make it as simple as possible for the viewer out there to understand whatever we are going to be discussing. But you're all welcome to the show. We are going to start with, let me start from the Honorable Basalirwa, who has just joined us. As opposition, the latest that is coming from Parliament today is that you have boycotted the sitting of the House as opposition. Why are you doing this, and is it feasible? Is it the best way for the country and for you as opposition? Why are you doing this?
Well, I want to thank you, Charles, and my colleagues. Obviously, as we celebrate and as we remember the late former Chief Justice Chiwanuka, it's also important for us to put into context the human rights situation in the country. Yesterday, as you're aware, a statement was made in Parliament by the leader of opposition highlighting the human rights situation related to two of our colleagues who had been illegally arrested and also illegally incarcerated. And we thought business could not be normal when our colleagues are incarcerated, moreover illegally. And we highlighted the various human rights violations that had occurred in the process of the arrest and even the incarceration. And when the Speaker suspended the House for 15 minutes, we expected an explanation from government. And indeed, after the 15 minutes, the Prime Minister came and explained that the colleagues had been arrested and were with the state. The Attorney General came and made matters worse, because what was at issue was the violation of the rights. And neither the Prime Minister nor the Attorney General did address the concerns that had been raised by the leader of opposition. So we thought that as one of the ways of amplifying the situation, we would walk away. And that's exactly what we did. And, you know, fortunately, the Speaker adjourned the House yesterday. There was a suspension, there was also an adjournment. And when the Speaker eventually joined us on the steps of Parliament, well, he said, you have a right to walk out. His only point of disagreement with us was some colleagues who wore T-shirts inside the chambers, and to him he thought that was desecrating, you know, the House. So the symbolism, as far as we are concerned, is very huge. And I'm glad that if you watched today, I was not in Parliament, the boycott is still on, but I've been watching the news. The State Minister for Internal Affairs has actually issued an apology. He did issue an apology. So that only tells you.
Have you accepted it as opposition?
No, it has not come to us.
In as far as the manner of the arrest, because that is going to also be part of the discussion that we shall be having. We are discussing the issue of bail, the manner of the arrest immediately after release on bail, and just arresting alone after bail. That's going to form the discussion. But mainly, we are going to dwell on what the president is arguing and what the Chief Justice and perhaps the judiciary is arguing.
Well, we have not, maybe the leader of opposition could have received the apology formally. I'm not privy to that information. But it's a good gesture. Okay. If really government could come on the floor and offer an apology, it's a good gesture. And for me, I would take it in very good faith and only pray that such occurrences actually don't happen again. Okay.
Chairman Mao, you are a leader of an opposition political party, and the MPs who are being, first of all, they were rearrested after being given bail, and they are supposed to be taken to be charged again, but also to appear again for mention of their case. Do you see this as being problematic, or do you think that the arresting people, the arresting organs, are right to do it that way? What should be the best approach to this?
When somebody has committed a crime, they are supposed to be told by the arresting officer what crime they have committed. In one of the famous, I know you warned us against legalese, but there is a declaration. It is from a case in America. The party was called Miranda. You are supposed to tell the person you are arresting that you have the right to remain silent. Whatever you say may be used in evidence against you in court. And the holding charges, what as lawyers we call probable cause, should be stated clearly. I think we are talking about law enforcement. We are talking about human rights. We are also talking about unusual manners of arrest that are manifestly cruel. Arresting per se is in the law. Suspects are arrested. But when somebody has got bail and then you go and arrest them in such a manner, the way we saw with the two, the Honorables Sewanyana and the Segirinya, then it appears as if it is really a form of state terrorism. You are sending a message to anybody else. I mean, if you can subject members of parliament to that kind of indignity, then, and what about those who don't have that high profile? I think that kind of thing actively makes the work of ministers very difficult. I know the Minister of State for Internal Affairs, and thank God General Muhoozi David is the minister. I do not know whether his senior colleague would have been apologetic. He would have probably recommended a career change to some of the MPs, e.g. rearing ducks. But thankfully we have a soldier who sees himself as a child of the Constitution. Now, when you treat MPs like that, you make the work of people like David Muhoozi extremely difficult. What is a minister supposed to say to a parliament that is up in arms demanding answers, they should be able to explain. So when you come and you say the members of parliament are with the state, what kind of answer is that? The law provides that any suspect should be produced in court within 48 hours. So the level of gross brutality, impunity, and incompetence, you know, even if you are doing bad things, at least do them properly. It is bad enough not to do the good things well. I mean, the roads are not being done well, vaccination is not being done well, the dams are not producing enough electricity. Many of the things are not being done well. But even the bad things, you cannot do them well. It's scandalous. So I think the ministers who face the public, because the MPs represent us, the MPs don't speak for themselves. So the government should make the work of ministers easy. Now, in terms of the context, I do believe very strongly that the apology sets a new tempo. I do not know whether it was done on the floor of the House.
Yeah, he did it on the floor of the House.
Okay, I was not following. If that is the case, then we expect that they should get a response from the leader of opposition. I have also always insisted that this business of seeing the opposition as enemies, we are just a different shade of the same society. And unless we are going to divide the country and we decide that this part is for the government and this side is for the opposition, I do believe that it's the duty of the government to brief someone like the leader of opposition. They are what they call behind the counter conversations, back channels. It is important because the leader of opposition needs to know what is really happening. And that is what responsible governance is all about. I don't think the leader of opposition, if told certain things, would, on the basis of confidentiality, and I think any leader, whether you're in opposition or government, should respect something which is confidential.
Okay.
In the laws of Uganda, for instance, chairpersons of districts take the oath of secrecy. And I can tell you, I was holding that position in a very sensitive part of the country where lots of things were happening. Gulu was the epicenter with the biggest military base, an air base with that volatile border to the north. So we occasionally we had to quiz the people who make decisions in order to get vital information, to understand. I think anybody who will become a leader of Uganda must know that you must brief your opposite numbers about what is happening. Okay. To that extent, therefore, what happened to the two MPs is totally unacceptable. It's illegal. It goes against the spirit of our constitution and sends a bad message and taints the reputation of our country.
Okay. Let me take it up from there straight to Counsel Hussein. You are a practicing lawyer, but you also in other moments you defend government in cases. Mao refers to what has happened.
He represents the president.
Yes. And NRM. Mao refers to what we also happened as illegal and especially is a shaming to the sitting government. Do you see the same way, or what do you see as being the right done, and what was wrong with that kind of approach? How should it be done?
First, good evening, and good evening, viewers. It's my first time on this program, so I thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for coming.
I don't think that I depart very much from what my colleagues have said in terms of what the legal principles are. Because I don't think we can sit here and start rewriting the law. And I also don't know what evidence the state has against the MPs in terms of the new charges that have either been preferred or are going to be preferred. I don't have that information, which led to their rearrest after they were granted bail. Suffice it to note that having been granted bail on such terms as were presented in court and acceptable to the court, perhaps they could have led them to their homes or allowed them to go to their homes and then effected the arrest after, using the procedure that is provided. Usually for an MP, summons are issued for them to appear, and those summons are delivered to the speaker, and then the speaker informs the particular MP about the summons. The speaker may elect to take the MP himself to CID or wherever they are required, or may ask the MP to present himself. I think there would not be any harm in following that procedure, as indeed as it is provided under the law. This afternoon, I watched, as has been mentioned, General David Muhoozi, the State Minister of Internal Affairs, make a statement and apologize because the summons were issued, but they arrived at Parliament after the fact, after they had arrested the MPs. It was a bit shabby. It was a bit shabby, but as I said, the qualifier is I don't know what information the state has. I don't know whether they had information that the MPs were going to run out of jurisdiction, but at least the optics were very shabby. It looked bad. It could have been done better. And by the way, I would want to depart just a little from my colleagues and not emphasize so much that MPs should be arrested in a better way than other ordinary citizens. I think people should be treated fairly. All people should be treated fairly.
And that's what, and that's actually the point that the Right Honorable Olanya made on the floor of Parliament. He said MPs should be ideally treated this way because of, but also everybody.
Yeah, everybody should have equal treatment under the law. Unless somebody has been summoned and has refused to appear and or is resisting arrest, but ordinarily people should be summoned to whatever interrogation center where they are required, and they elect maybe to call on their counsel to escort them, and they go and record statements, particularly people who have known addresses, except if you are shoddy or if you have suspected of committing murder and you are running away. But if people are known and they know where they are, they should summon them and they appear. So just to answer you, it looked a bit shabby. It could have been done better.
Okay, which brings me, before I actually bring in Council Sarah, to stay with you a bit longer, Hussein. That statement you make and your colleagues brings me to the question or the wonder about whether the public statements made by even the commander-in-chief, the president himself, you remember about a month ago, was it a month or 2 months ago, when he addressed the country on issues of human rights, he said he emphasized the issue of innocence before being proven guilty, you know, and he said nobody should be beaten, nobody should be treated badly. Now, the same thing, I think General David Muhoozi has done this the second time he's apologizing. You remember when, I think when someone was mishandled in Mityana, he again apologized. But then we see situations where lower ranking officers arresting Ugandans, arresting people, and now they are doing it to MPs in what you call a shabby manner. Do we suspect or must we fear that the lower ranking officers have a different kind of command? They do their things unto themselves, that they don't listen even to the commander-in-chief, to their commanders? Must we have that fear?
No, I don't think you should have that fear. The point really that comes from what the president stated in his address is people should do things properly. Now, we need to move from speaking about these things and start doing them, because I don't think that it is problematic to have an officer of a certain rank arresting a person of a certain grade in society. I don't think we are short of officers that would be deployed, for example, to arrest an MP, because we have a hierarchy in this country. Members of parliament are at a certain hierarchy, and therefore they should be arrested ordinarily by an officer of a certain rank, at least not the lowest rank, not a constable. So the fear shouldn't be there. I understand why people would have the fear, but I think what government needs to do now is to move from the rhetoric and go to the action and make sure that whatever they say is implemented. If we keep making these mistakes, these apologies we make will not be taken, and you'll not blame the other party for not accepting them. I think it's just honorable that we just do the things that we set out to do and do them properly.
Okay.
I don't want to be naughty like Norbert and say do bad things properly. I think we shouldn't do bad things. There's absolutely no need for doing bad things.
At least.
No, he was just being naughty. I think we don't need to do that. We just need to do the right thing and the right way.
Good. Councillor Sarah, pick it up from, string it from where Hussein leaves it. I still want to follow up on the issue of, what we say and what we do, and especially said by highest ranking government officials and the lower ranking people seem not to be listening, and brings me to the question of bail or not bail. The president is saying there should be no bail for certain kind of offenders, especially murder suspects or something, people who have murdered or suspected to have murdered. Do you think that some people are in the executive already executing what the president is speaking to, minus the law being amended to cater for that? Is that what we see happening, or these are some overzealous lower-ranking officials just?
Okay, my 2 cents on the rearrest of MPs. One, the MPs, I think new charges were read to them today. It's an additional murder case. And, no matter when a person is already charged on a, circumstances are known, like now the circumstance in this instant case are massacre killings.
Yeah.
The charges that were read and given bail to the MPs before included murder and terrorism. And the state allegedly finds new evidence of murder for the case of Aran Sewanya, and I didn't get the details of Honorable Segirinya. You know, all they need to do is amend the charge sheet. The circumstances are the same. You are saying there is an additional person that was murdered. We charged you for 4 people. There is a 5th one. And then all the horror of drones, you know, the brutality, knocking the lawyer's car, you know, Honorable Shamim's car. Really, is it necessary? And the man of arrest is clearly laid down in Article 28 of our Constitution on a right to a fair hearing. Introduce yourself, mention the crime, explain in a language understandable by a suspect, inform members of the family if available, or if they are not, allow them access later, inform them of the place of detention. You know, Article 28 is so detailed. Allow access to a lawyer, a doctor, you know, next of kin. All these things are intentionally abused. And maybe, before I go to the detail of the bail, controversial bail debate, I think citizens need to know that the absence of rule of law is anarchy. And there is no middle ground. And anybody can fall victim of anarchy. So the earlier we prevent it as a country, the better. On the controversy surrounding bail debate, the origin of bail is you know, dates way back to the 15th century in England, and especially after the Norman conquest or the fall of the Roman Empire. And there were two kinds of administration of justice: retributive, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, or restorative, a system where you seek to repair the damage made as well as reform the offenders. So this system was carried out, and with the time, the kings then realized that it's not necessary to engage in costs and damage caused by pre-trial detentions. And they introduced what was then known as BORB, B-O-R-B, which means, you know, which is a synonym for bail. And under the bail conditions then, a suspect would plead to the charges, bring sureties in terms of people to guarantee that they will attend trial, as well as money or security in terms of the damage equivalent to the damage caused, which later, if the suspect is found guilty, later that security would turn into compensation for the victims. That system saved the state then money in pre-trial detentions, you know, prison congestion, loss of jobs in case of people who are, you know, you are suspected of a crime, because we still use the common law doctrine of presumption of innocence until proven guilty. So when you get somebody and detain them, normally for 6 months, 2 years, without hearing a case, you cause this person irreparable damage in terms of social standing, in terms of jobs or business, in terms of family disintegration, and all other damages that are caused to a person in areas of detention or incarceration. So the kings then and the leaders were able to prevent such a miscarriage of justice way back, you know, in the 15th century. Later, the monarchs that ruled used state power to abuse the principles of justice that society had nurtured over time. And this caused anarchy to the extent of pushing England to the brink of a civil war. And that's when King John, precisely in 1215, signed what is known as the Magna Carta rules. Under Magna Carta rules, Article 39 is very clear on the guarantees for due process. The presumption of innocence, right to bail, you know, equality before the law, non-discrimination before the law. All of these components that guarantee due process in the criminal justice system
Which is transferred into Article 23,
yes,
basically.
Yes, are contained in the Article 39 of the Magna Carta Act as far as 1215. So the principles in the Magna Carta Act later translated into the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And Articles 1, 3, 5, 10, and 11 of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights agree on non-discrimination before the law, equality before the law, right to personal liberty, freedoms, right to apply for bail, and presumption of innocence, and the right to a fair trial. So this is a debate that was resolved as far early as 1215. I find it quite disturbing that amidst all the challenges that we are faced with as a country, we have a head of state that is resurrecting a debate that was resolved in a pre-industrial era when other countries are focusing on benefiting their nations and citizens in the fourth industrial revolution. For us, we are reversing the clock back to pre-industrial era in 1215. I find it quite disturbing.
But isn't it understandable, or can't you appreciate that today we have new forms of offenses, terrorism, for example, a global threat, and everybody is discussing whether the 48-hour rule is really sufficient, and people are discussing, shouldn't it be extended? Wouldn't that be understandable, as is contained in Article 23 of our Constitution? Wouldn't that be a discussable matter, or you don't want it touched at all?
I think the way for terrorism, we have new capital offenses that have since emerged. Of course, I think it's important to inform the viewers and citizens that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is commonly known as the Bill of Rights, was copied and pasted in our Constitution under Chapter 4 of our Constitution. The same applies to components of International Convention on Civil and Political Rights and the components of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, as well as the principles in the East African Treaty. These rights are protected in all these instruments. And Uganda is a signatory, especially under the leadership of President Museveni. So when we talk of amending the Constitution to discriminate people under the law, because part of the principles is equality before the law and non-discrimination before the law. Article 2 of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, Article 3, Article 10 and 11. You come to the principles of the East African Treaty closer home, democratic principles must be upheld. Failure to uphold, you are expelled even from the community. It's a ground to say you are not fit to be a member of the East African community. The African Charter on Human and People's Rights, the African Charter on Elections, Governance and Democracy. Uganda is a signatory by the hand of President Museveni. The Constitution of Uganda. Yes, new crimes have emerged, but we have particular laws, acts of parliament. We have the Anti-Terrorism Act. We have the Anti-Money Laundering Act. So which other crimes have emerged that are not taken care of by our laws as a country?
Okay. Hussein, let me come back to the team that side. When Sarah refers to this different instruments, international, regional, and of course national, our own municipal laws, the argument by some people, and if you recall at the funeral of the late John Kagezi, it was a heated matter. I think it was the former Chief Justice, Bat Katurebe, with I think Kale Kaihura, that the 48-hour rule is not sufficient. You know, terrorists, new criminals, new offenders are now smarter, they are well-resourced, and they can, you know, cause miscarriage of even of investigations easily. They can frustrate it with a lot of money and all this, and therefore we need some more sufficient time. What is that sufficient time? Is that the argument that we should now accept that MPs should go for? What's your view?
First, Charles, I think Sarah didn't contextualize the president's remarks regarding bail. He specifically talked about bail for capital offenses.
Yeah.
And his view is that it should not be quickly given. It should not be given. And that if it should be given, it should not be quickly given. And for him, his argument is, why are you rushing? Someone has just been arrested for murder.
Where quickly or rushing would mean what?
He goes to court once he has been charged, and then he applies for bail and is released on bail.
Following due process, judicial.
Absolutely. Indeed, he was addressing judges, so he was talking about due process. He hasn't issued an executive order. The law doesn't give him that power. That's why he was engaging with the judges, and particularly because bail is not a right.
Yeah. The right is the application.
The right is to apply
for bail, yes.
But I keep hearing people.
And I think as lawyers, you need to educate people on that.
Yes. So I keep hearing people talking about right to bail. Right. There is no right to bail.
That's true.
What our constitution provides for is a right to apply
for bail, yes.
And once you have applied, it is then up to the court.
The other party does not say yes.
Yes, to your proposal. So don't take us to how many proposals you've had. Now, so once you have applied for the bail, it is up to the court. It is up to the court. Can you ask chairman to stop being not?
No, I can see where you're going. I want you to move away.
So the president was rallying the judges that in exercising your discretion, because the law leaves it up to the judge to look at the circumstances of each case.
Which they do.
Which presumably they do. So they are presumed to do so. So in exercising that discretion to grant the bail, please look at several things. Look at several factors. That's what the president was talking about. And I think for me, the debate is healthy. This is a view because he's an elected leader, like Honorable Asman Basalirwa. These are views that he's speaking from the people he's leading, and he's bringing them up for discussion. Only yesterday, he also called upon the NRM caucus in Parliament to discuss the same. I am told that they were not
receptive.
They were not very receptive of the idea of denying bail to suspects. You see, essentially, Charles, our system is unlike the French system. Here there is a presumption of innocence. Even when you have caught the person red-handed.
Yeah, true.
Or as the Honorable Rukwago likes saying, flagranto delictum. Of course, needless to mention. If you have arrested the person in the act, as long as that person does not accept the act, then he is presumed to be innocent until you bring evidence to prove. And he does not have to prove his innocence. The burden in most of these cases doesn't shift. The burden is on the state to prove the guilt of the person and not the person proving his innocence. So because of this presumption of innocence, it becomes therefore imperative to treat each and every person as a suspect, even when you have overwhelming evidence that the person has committed the crime. I think it's based on that presumption and also looking at circumstances of each case that the judge then decides to exercise discretion and grants bail. But we also have many bail applications that have been denied. We've in our practice, we've gone for bail applications and they are denied. Each case stands on its own merits.
Okay.
So for me, unlike Sarah saying the president is reviving
For the industrial debate.
a debate that was settled in the pre-industrial times, I think it is important for Sarah to realize that now we have new crimes. As the moderator has mentioned, people have become very sophisticated, and it is important that we have this debate. Finally, on the question of the 48 hours, we have serious challenges in our legal system. One, what is the capacity of the Criminal Investigations Department of the Uganda Police to investigate this crime and make sure that they have all the evidence that is necessary to present somebody before a court of law for prosecution? They are not well facilitated. They suffer so many. Honorable Wasarira gives them their budget, so he's the one who knows better how they perform. He's always their visitor there, but he underfunds them. I'm just trying to borrow the naughtiness of the chairman here, Robert Mao. Now, so the capacity, what is the capacity of CID to investigate these cases and prepare them for prosecution? Number two, after they have investigated the case, it now then goes to DPP. What is the capacity of the DPP to also prosecute these cases based on the evidence that has been adduced by CID? Then it goes to court. With our case backlog, with the number of judges we have, the other day the spokesperson of prisons was talking and he said they have about 5,000 convicts and they have over 10,000 people on remand. You see, meaning that you have those who are on remand means they have not, their cases have not been
pre-trial detentions.
Yes, and so because of this lack of capacity in the different sectors of our judicial system, you are going to keep having these delays and delays until when our economy is able to support us to a certain level where we can expedite. But that we should have a debate on whether that 48-hour rule is sufficient or not is paramount, and we should have the debate.
Honorable Basalirwa, you are the MP currently sitting in the House. And as an opposition, of course, you, as we now see, you are among the leading victims of this issue being discussed. Do you think that this is something that should be discussed?
Although Honorable Wasarira is always the counsel, he has not been very. He's very tactical in his mischief. He's never caught, so somehow he always represents the other ones who.
The tactful.
Yeah. So he's always the counsel for the guys who take.
Even in the military, you don't send all your good troops ahead. You leave some.
But you will never beat Honorable John Ken Luchamuzi's record.
It's sui generis.
No matter how much you try.
But the songs are not there anymore.
No, Charles, I must confess, I think at this table, we've all been beneficiaries of bail. Yes. If my memory serves me right.
Yes, me, I am well known for rejecting bail.
Yes.
No, I once got bail myself,
yes.
So yes.
I remember in 2011, my first time to be arrested and imprisoned. And you know, at that time, Mr. Museveni put all of us in prison. Yes, he's the president, he's Mr., he's General, he's Tata Muhoozi, he's Jaja. So what you prefer is what you call him. And when we were...
You know, if now it is like for the Kabaka, you can't choose any single name. You must line all of them.
Yes, sir.
So can you start again?
Jaja. So, when we were taken to Luzira, I remember Chairman Mao was driven very fast to Nakasongola. Nakasongola?
At 4 a.m.
Yes. And somehow we got out on bail. There was a time all leaders of political parties in this country that had representation in parliament, except the NRM, were moving on bail. There was a time in 2011.
Was a confession for being
more so. Yes, more so. And that was the situation then. Now, coming to what we are discussing, Charles, I really don't think that there are any new circumstances in the country that warrant a change or a discussion of reform in the law. I don't think so.
Now they are there.
In fact, I was
Benedicto Chwanuka disappeared.
No, that's not. That
I was.
He has never been seen.
I was speaking to some colleagues of yours in the media today, and I was telling them that not even the Taliban government has discussed abolition of bail. Not even the Taliban government.
No, but it conducts summary executions on the
yes,
so
but
why would they discuss
no, but but it
no,
is there.
You're out of order.
No, I am not out of order.
The example is not.
I'm not out of order.
Just the other day they were hanging people on cranes on the streets.
And I'll tell you, North Korea tried to jump out of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights Treaty, and they told them no. Let it be there regardless of your practice. So not even the Taliban government. So Mr. Museveni and the NRM will go on record.
When you dress like this and you start defending the Taliban.
We'll go on record. The NRM government and Mr. Museveni will go on record for being the first government in the world to even imagine removal of bail. They will go on record. Now, you are talking about terrorism. You are talking about cyber crime. Because Mr. Museveni is saying, and according to the Mr. Hussein Kashiring, he seems to suggest that the president is uncomfortable granting bail before the 60 days, if I got you right, before the 60 days for the minor offenses, and 180 days for the capital offenses, if I got you right.
But it's already in the Constitution.
And I think the president, when the president says why the hurry, I think the president is saying, why, for example, don't you wait for the 60 days for the minor offenses and 180 days for the capital offenses? And the president is asking, why the hurry? Now, somebody should really engage the president and tell him.
Hussein is there.
Yes, Hussein, very, has worked in the State House as a legal something for the president. And actually inform the president, and I think he's aware, that the problem has never been bail being given immediately. That has never been the problem. I'll give an example, Charles. Parliament did pass the Human Rights Enforcement Act.
Yes.
And that act, one of the things it emphasizes, if in the process of arrest and prosecution there are human rights violations, a trial is supposed to be halted and the court focuses on the human rights violations. We have seen incidents where people have been arrested and tortured, and they are taken to court limping with fresh wounds.
Your colleagues were limping today.
Exactly. And the president is saying people who have been tortured by state operatives should actually be detained and should not be granted bail. How do you say that?
No, that's not what he said.
No, I am asking, if the president is saying why the hurry, does he address issues like torture? For example, during arrest.
The exception to what he's saying.
No, not if
you are agreeing with him, but providing an exception.
No, actually, for him,
that in cases where there is
for
established
him, he does not talk about exceptions.
No, that's
for him,
what you are addressing.
His issue is why the hurry? Why the hurry? And I am saying that the framers of the Constitution, and he's really is an architect of this Constitution. The framers of that Constitution had all the reasons to place the provisions the way they are. After all, even the discretion we are talking about is so broad that the judiciary is capable of saying, you know, given the circumstances, you should not be granted bail.
But bail is granted in exceptional circumstances.
That's one. But also two.
And denied also.
Of course.
Yes, but also two. I think the president should help us with the statistics. Where does he get the thinking that the problem is so rampant that it necessitates a change in the law? Where is his statistics?
Statistics of crimes by police shows that
that these people who are released are repeat offenders.
Serious offenders.
Yes.
Yes.
65.
Yes.
Meaning that people who go to jail, then maybe they come out whether on bail or out of prison, then they commit the offenses again.
The issue is
that's
not
65%.
bail. The issue is not bail.
Okay.
The issue is conviction. People who have been arrested, prosecuted, convicted, sentenced, they have served their sentences and come out and actually commit these crimes. So the issue has nothing to do with bail.
No, Honorable Sariwa, that's not correct.
No. The statistics of perpetual offenders relate to people who have been convicted, not those who have been granted bail. Otherwise, you tell me which court is going to grant bail to a perpetual offender. Which court? Because that in itself is a ground for denial of bail. So it is just not there. So I think somebody also needs to share these statistics with Mr. Museveni. That perhaps the concern should be on the severity of the punishment. If he's talking about, for example, custodial sentences, how long should they be? And what's the impact? And by the way, that in itself cannot be even a problem of the sentence if it is custodial. It cannot. Perhaps it goes to our prison system. What eventually is the purpose of the sentence? Is it to reform these offenders?
No, information, Asman. It's not correct to say that the statistics of the 65% is for convicted criminals. No, that's not correct.
No, actually, that's the statistics.
It refers to repeat offenders.
Repeat offenders. The repeat offenders they are talking about are not those who have been convicted, sentenced, and served the term.
No, actually, that is it.
No. For example, Suman, some of the suspects who were arrested for the death of Katumba's daughter have been arrested in other murders. None of them has a conviction.
Whose problem is
no, just this. I just wanted that to be clarified. That they don't have a conviction, but they have been arrested in several other murders.
So they stop at the level of being suspects.
No.
You are wrong even
if they are arrested and they are charged in court, the only way they leave prison must be through court. Because there is no way prison can release you without a court order.
First of all, what you are talking about is factually incorrect. I represent these Muslims, the ones he's talking about.
I want to call them suspects, not Muslims.
No, they are Muslims. You want to deny it?
Why are you introducing the issue of Muslims?
Yeah, they are suspects.
Because I am. You are not going to. I even raised it in Parliament, by the way.
I mean, on this discussion,
yes.
Is it the matter? The matter is not that they are Muslims.
Are you representing them because they are Muslims?
That's a different evidence you're trying to bring.
Charles, let me tell you.
But are you representing them because you're a Muslim?
Yes. Yes, I am chairperson of the Muslim Parliamentary Caucus.
I thought you represent them because you are a lawyer.
No.
You would represent me. You represent Honorable Chagulanyi.
Let me tell you.
Do you represent him because he's a Muslim?
No, because he's an activist.
Exactly.
That group of people are Charles. So a community has been victimized. Don't use a national media.
No.
Let me tell you.
Okay. First, wait, Honorable.
Don't try to suffocate me.
No, I'm not.
Because I am talking about victimization of Muslims.
How can I invite you to suffocate you? Now let's do this. Honorable Basalirwa, my president at Makerere University. This is what I'm suggesting, and I'm requesting that let's bring evidences and facts to reinforce and support the issues that are under discussion here, not new ones which we cannot prove, which are just opinions that we have no proof for.
Well,
that's what I'm requesting.
Well, going back to the issue you raised, I know you are uncomfortable discussing persecution of Muslims, but it's a fact. But I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. Maybe at some other fora. Yes, I'll leave it at that. But we are being persecuted.
Having made reference to the Taliban government.
But, yes, which you are trying to out-compete. Which NRM is trying to out-compete. But I think,
that
Charles,
is a very tough league.
Charles, what the president should be concerned about, there is no court that I know that will grant a habitual criminal, a capital offender, bail, is out, is rearrested for another offense, and is granted bail.
That's a fair comment.
Okay, I have not seen it.
That's a fair comment.
And it has not happened.
Okay.
The statistics you are talking about actually relate. Yes, today I was speaking with the State Minister for Defense, and he was telling us a story of in somewhere in Kaberamaido. Somebody did murder on the village, and was instead of murder, he was charged with manslaughter, sentenced to 17 years. He did serve the 17 years. When he was eventually released from prison, he went back to the village, and the people said, even if you are out, you did kill, and there was mob justice
on the person.
On the person, and that person was I mean, the society killed the person. They still had the anger after 17 years. So somebody maybe could discuss the sentences. And by the way, fortunately, these days, we have even sentencing guidelines.
Yes.
But
even bail guidelines.
Yes, and that was...
No, but Asuman, the president also discussed that yesterday.
Of what?
What you are, the exact point.
Yes, and
of how this person is released, goes back to the community, and then the community he discussed.
No, what he was saying, what the president was saying.
I want to bring in Chairman Mao on to give us more meat on what he thinks really is the problem and where we should be looking. Not if we are not going to look at, the bail being granted or not. But I want to call for a break right now at this point, a short break. And then when we come back, I bring in Chairman Mao, and after him, just feel free to change views and let it be free debate, so that then we have the best coming out of all of us. But if you want to join this discussion via online on YouTube, you can go to UBC Television. That's UBC Television Uganda. That's on YouTube, and it is live, UBC Television Uganda. On Twitter, hashtag UBC Behind the Headlines. That's on Twitter. I repeat that, hashtag UBC Behind the Headlines. And but finally, if you want to send a message, you can use 0709 602592. I will repeat that, 0709 602592. If you're sending that message, keep it as short as possible, so that we can read it during the discussion in the second segment. But let's take that break now. This is Behind the Headlines.
Sinuk Uganda Limited, in partnership with the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum UCMP, present to you the Sinuk Q3 Supplier Development E-Conference 2021 under the theme Opportunities for SMEs in the Development Phase of the Uganda Oil and Gas Sector. Panelists will include James Musherure, the Senior National Content Officer, Uganda Petroleum Authority, Matthew Chaligonza, National Content Manager, Sinuk Uganda Limited, Agria Shaba, Secretary General of Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, Veronica Waimagembe, Manager for Oil and Gas at PricewaterhouseCoopers Limited, Kato Jackson, Managing Director, Kato Contractors Limited, and Savinda Singh Saini, the Director at Excel Construction Limited. It will be moderated by Tony Okao Otoa, the Executive Director, Stanbic Business Incubator Limited. The event will be live on UBC TV on Thursday, the 30th of September 2021 from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Proudly brought to you by Sinuk Uganda Limited in partnership with the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, UCMP.
My home, I smile when I think of you, Uganda. My home. My home, I dance when I look at you, Uganda. My home, oh my Uganda.
I know, with you I'll always stay forever. I know, because I feel that we belong together. My home, under the sun so bright, under the moon at night, on my heart, on me, oh my Uganda.
Hey mama,
My Uganda, my Uganda, my Uganda, my Uganda. Nigukunda, my Uganda. Amari, alemira, my Uganda.
nyowe nikugonza.
My Uganda.
Amina ngojo, amina ngojo.
At MTN, we look forward to starting another exciting journey together to grow our home, Uganda.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa only if we stay at home, observe physical distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly, or get vaccinated now.
Be alert! Do not share your Airtel Money PIN number with anyone. Airtel Uganda employees will never ask for your Airtel Money PIN number on call, SMS, or by email. All SIM card registrations, SIM card verifications, or SIM swaps are done at clearly branded Airtel shops and not on phone. To report any fraudulent activity, please call 100 immediately. The official calling number for Airtel promotions is 0200 100 100. Stay alert on Airtel Money. Instant, secure, borderless.
Welcome back from the break. This is Behind the Headlines on UBC, and today, Wednesday, the 29th of September 2021, we are discussing to grant or not to grant bail, the discussion by His Excellency the President, and of course, disagreement coming in there from the leadership of the judiciary. That don't touch that, leave it as it is discretionary and upon the presiding judge to decide based on the circumstances, the legal circumstances and evidence before court. But we are also looking at this in you know, amidst the arrest or rearrest of two members of parliament, Honorable Segirinya and Alan Sewanyana. And in the studio we have Democratic Party President General Chairman Mao, we have Council Hussein Kashilingi Rugaba, we have Honorable Asuman Basalirwa of Jema in the 11th Parliament, and we have Council Sarah Birete, Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance. Before we went for the break, I had requested Chairman Mao to weigh in with his thoughts on what he actually thinks is the problem. Is this, someone else would ask, is this a priority discussion or debate, even for Parliament or for the country at this time when we are faced with issues of COVID, faced with issues of you know, a tough economy, issues of poverty? Is this what should be a priority to discuss for the nation or even for to engage MPs? Chairman Mao, weigh in.
Thank you, Charles. I thank my colleagues for giving their perspectives. The president, like I've said before, has a big pulpit, and whatever he says is a problem becomes a problem, whether it is a problem or not. It's like when you go to see your doctor and he pronounces that you have some ailment, whether you actually have it or not, you definitely start behaving like you have it. Many people have been taking medication for what they are not suffering from. So a president has got to be very cautious not to express himself that there is a problem when it is not actually the biggest problem. So when the president said homosexuals are a problem, they became a problem in Uganda. Then he has now woken up and said Milo land is a problem. It has become a problem. Now he's saying granting bail to certain categories of offenders is a problem, and now it has become a problem. And the 4 very intelligent lawyers are going to spend 2 hours in the studio discussing it because it has become a problem. So the president is an agenda setter. And
no problem setter.
I have said an agenda setter. Whether the agenda is about finding solutions or problematizing certain things. Now I want to say law is dynamic. So even the country where the Magna Carta was authored
has since moved on.
Has had a lot of reforms. I think the basic question is there a case for bail reform? I think the discussion is healthy. In 2013, about 8 years ago, having become well known or maybe even notorious as a campaigner for amnesty for the LRA, I was invited to Oxford University to give a talk to defend my rather unpopular views in the land of Magna Carta. So to even make my talk and lecture more provocative to the students and professors of Oxford, I titled it When Law Meets Reality. Many times the law clashes with reality. The president has not framed his appeal properly, and the opponents of his viewpoint have hurriedly framed the debate. So they have put, it is no longer bail which is being discussed, but rather the president. We have a Uganda Law Reform Commission, and it is their duty to gather views on any reforms that are necessary in our laws. Now, when you are considering bail, In order not to bastardize the debate, there are some things you must consider. Number one, it's the duty of a government to protect the public and also victims of crime. You can't debate bail without discussing public protection and victims of crime. When there is mob justice, it simply means there's frustration, and the victims of crime want to eliminate a person they think is capable of committing a crime. Now the president is leaning on these cases of mob justice, and he's presenting them as a petition to him. So he's basically saying, restrict bail to stop mob justice. And that in itself is a trap, because nobody is allowed to take the law into their own hands. So to even talk like that means it is now possible for people to incite mob justice as an argument. Two, you have got to consider how slow our judicial system and courts are. If there was speedy trial and an accused person knows his or her position as quickly as possible, like in this case of this guy who knelt on somebody's neck in America, that was a very speedy trial. This police officer immediately knew where he stood, and he is now serving his sentence. Bail is important in a society where there are huge case backlogs. The Chief Justice keeps complaining that judges are not enough, magistrates are not enough, the office of the DPP does not have enough prosecutors, the criminal investigation system is in shambles, and I dare say bail is even to the highest bidder.
Yes.
There are people who deserve bail, who should get bail, who can't get bail. Even processing a production warrant. I got a call the other day from one of our candidates. He contested for MP as a person with disability. He borrowed some money from a SACCO, he failed to pay. He was charged with obtaining money by false pretense. This is a civil case, ideally. Why should a SACCO, or why would even the police entertain? But sometimes people can motivate the police financially to transform a civil case into a criminal case. And now the father called me and said, in order to get bail, he needs like 300,000 shillings just to have the matter tabled in court. So corruption is also another problem, which is a big obstacle. And the reason we are discussing this is because we have MPs. Yeah, and that's why I salute the speaker for saying, look, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. Let us talk across the board. Chicken thieves are mixing with the murderers, and the petty offenders, those who have committed misdemeanors, they are supposed to be tried quickly and sentenced to community service. The law was passed. So we also have to look at the slowness of our court system, which makes bail all the more urgent. And like Sarah said in the beginning, it is very expensive to keep people in prison. And therefore, bail would help. In the past, bail was about ensuring that the accused person attends court. And usually, the surety was somebody of repute who had the ability to compel the attendance of the person who is a suspect. These days, because of modernization and technology,
they hired sureties.
We even have, no, we now have electronic monitoring gadgets. You remember the case of Innocent Bisangwa?
Yeah.
He was released in America, in Orlando. And the Americans said, well, you are free, but you must keep carrying that bracelet, either on your arm or on your leg. And the moment you go out of the perimeter, it sends a signal to the police, and then the drone comes for you with legitimate rights. So we haven't reached there yet in Uganda. The other thing to consider in discussing bail is of course that it should be assumed that ordinarily anybody should be able to get bail unless there are reasons why they should not get bail. And that's where the president's debate should start from. In other words, he needs to talk about those things that would prevent people from getting bail. His timing of the debate is obviously wrong. If he was debating from a point of principle, you don't start discussing it when two members of parliament are in jail. That way you are seen as a person who is simply interested in keeping members of parliament in jail. That is why if we want bail reform, and many countries have done bail reform, the so-called countries we love to copy. Australia has done bail reform, Britain has done bail reform. After September 11th, rules of bail were tightened in America. So when the law clashes with reality, that collision should produce a synthesis. But the key is to build a consensus around what the objective of the bail reform is.
Chairman, if I may ask, for the benefit of viewers, I think it would be important to mention some of these reforms. And are they progressive or retrogressive in terms of due process and quick administration of justice? Then the second question I would like to get your perspective on. We have had instances, I think recently, Court of Appeal set free a man who had spent 20 years in jail for murder for a person who is alive. Also in the case of the People's Redemption Army, I think people spent 16 years in jail for an alleged murder in Arua. That never happened. So how do we cure these instances that cause a miscarriage of justice as we move to debate bail reforms?
The way to do reform is to understand its process and its substance. What the president is doing is not reform. He's fuming, he's issuing things that appear like decrees. A reform should be consultative and should be based on feedback, and the substance of the reform is, for instance, to ensure that there's a speedy trial. There should be progress with a person's case. Generally, the society should not have to suffer from those who should be in prison. That's why we have prisons. Any political party will not close the prisons. There is no political party that is going to repeal the penal code. Now, in law, the process and the substance of the law must go together. So most of the reforms in the countries I've referred to have been more in the direction of ensuring that the rights of the offender are protected, but also the public and particularly the victims. In fact, why would you deny bail? You deny bail, for instance, if you suspect that somebody is going to come and maybe kill potential witnesses. In that case, there should always even be witness protection programs those are legitimate. Many witnesses are too afraid. For instance, if you go and testify, and by hook or crook, sometimes because of our criminal justice system, which provides for evidence and proof beyond reasonable doubt, and the hesitancy by the courts to convict somebody who could be innocent, somebody can slip through the net of the law and go back to now sort out those who came to testify. It is, we should not oversimplify this, and definitely the president should be the last to oversimplify this. My recommendation would be that he should call upon his advisors and experts to start the process of consultation. I would advise him against the idea of a referendum. He will be embarrassed because the...
How about going through the Law Reform Commission?
I think the law reform, there are enough wise people to be appointed. In some countries, ad hoc committees have been appointed to advise the president. A president must always act advisedly. It helps him so that he has people to blame. But now he has thrown himself at the front line.
But Charles, Charles, I think we are. I think we are being unfair to the president.
How?
It's not the first time that he has raised this issue about bail.
That's true.
He has been talking about it for a while. So yesterday, because there was this function
on Monday.
On Monday,
yeah.
Because there was this function with the judiciary, he now brought it to the fore because those are the people that exercise discretion when it comes to bail.
Yeah.
And after that, then he realized these ones are merely implementing the law, but now I need to go to the ones who make the law. Then he called on his party members and engaged them. I think that's healthy for a president, for an elected president, to engage with the leadership at different levels. So let's not bastardize his effort, because he's saying there is need for us to discuss this. The improvement that Chairman Mao is bringing is saying, let's discuss bail reform. For me, I add, let's just discuss our whole entire criminal justice system.
Okay.
Let me just say one thing, not to rebut, but simply to say that if the president has really been having this matter very close as a policy agenda, he should have listed it among the legislative items in his State of the Nation address. Now, when two members of parliament who are very loud-mouthed, who are opposition and who are well known, I mean, these are people who are combative. Honorable Sewanyana was known for jumping in front of Honorable Tumwebaze when they were trying to impeach Lukwago. So these are people who are
on a table.
Yes. So the president has chosen the wrong time to start this debate. But if he had pronounced it in his opening, when he opened Parliament, in his State of the Nation address, nobody would be linking this. He would simply say, we talked about this matter and we are going to do it. It is important that government should not operate on the basis of knee-jerk impulses. After all, this is going to be long-term. It is going to go beyond his tenure of office, whatever he does. So he must do it with utmost seriousness and not allow himself to be trapped and misrepresented as a person persecuting opposition politicians. I rest my case.
Thank you, and I concede on that. I concede that it should be properly brought and discussed in the proper forum. But why I was saying we need to reform our criminal justice system, there are many things that we are identifying other than bail. The time that suspects spend in police cells, the time that accused persons spend in court, in prison before trial, how long a trial takes. All this all these are issues that need to be discussed and brought to the fore. I will give you an example. I went to Luzira and I found an interesting case. There was a gentleman who had been there for, I think, 8 years, and he had been charged with defilement. And he appeared in court, was charged with that defilement, and sent on remand. And he had never gone back to court in 6 years. And he was there. Excuse me. Sorry. But in the 6 years, he used to get visitors every Wednesday and Fridays. So one of the visitors that used to come and see him was allegedly the girl he defiled, who used to come with a son who was a product of the defilement. Now, what happened is that when he made the girl pregnant, the parents of the girl wanted money from him. And these are common cases in our community. They wanted money from him, and once he couldn't afford this amount of money, the father of the girl went and connived with the police officer, and then they preferred defilement charges on this gentleman. But at the time they were preferring these charges, he was already living with the girl. She was she had already given birth. I think at the time he was arrested,
was she
was
under 18 years?
He says she was not. In fact, at the time he was arrested, she had the second pregnancy. And they had been living together for 4 years. So, but
the law met reality.
Exactly. So there are many cases of this nature, even with regards to other
sociological jurisprudence.
even with regards to other offenses other than defilement, that present the case for reform of our criminal justice system as
what recommendation approach would your reform proposal take?
No, for me,
how should it be done?
For me, I think that we need to set timelines. We need.
But they're in the Constitution.
No. You forget you. By the way, there are many things that were put in this Constitution out of excitement. We have tested it. We have tested some of those, and some of them don't apply.
Then amend the timeline.
It was like the excitement of the first commandments of Animal Farm. Until the reality of
all animals are equal.
All animals are equal.
So there were many things that were like that Bill of Rights.
And the cat was always finding it very difficult to resist facing the rats.
No, forget about being signatory. Being signatory is one thing. Codifying a treaty or an international instrument.
Do you domesticate an international instrument by amending it?
No,
you are either signatory or you express your reservations.
What is the hierarchy of laws, sir?
I know that our laws are superior, but when you are a signatory,
so I'm saying
no, wait, Mr. Moderator. Yes. When you are a signatory to an international instrument, you have signed, you have ratified, and you are going to domesticate. You don't amend.
You can but I thought at the point no, Sarah, that's
I thought information. Let me I'm just asking for clarification. I'm just asking for clarity. For clarity, Sarah.
You codify with
I thought at the point of domestication,
yes,
you domesticated
to your circumstances.
No, wait, let me submit that you don't. No, you don't change it.
You don't.
If you have your reservations on any of the provisions of that international instrument, you inform the Secretariat that even if you have signed, you have reservations on these articles or provisions, and you don't ratify something.
And what do they do?
What happens? If you are going to sign a treaty, and you are uncomfortable with certain provisions in that treaty, you express reservations.
Yes.
And what you do, you say, we are going to sign this treaty, but we will not be bound
by
article this article this, article this. And it so happens very often, especially with the Arab world.
You will not have signed the treaty.
Actually, I am talking about procedure of signing and ratifying. Under international treaties, it is called reservation. Once you express a reservation, you are saying you are not going to be bound
by certain provisions.
That's what they mean by reservation. And
then you don't ratify.
No.
Yes.
You do ratify minus.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
Ratify.
No,
we
please stand corrected. Please be corrected, Asman. Once you have expressed reservations, then you don't ratify.
No. We have challenges with the African
Can you ratify the 10 commandments and then you express reservations on the 1 or 2?
Commit murder.
On number 9.
It is all or nothing. Number 9.
On number 9. On commandment number 9.
No, Charles. Charles, I think we shouldn't misguide the viewers. When you express reservations regarding an international instrument, you don't ratify.
Actually,
you cannot ratify subject to your reservation.
No, you see,
you don't.
I think we are confusing two things. We are confusing signing and ratifying.
No,
the two are different.
But how do you sign a treaty
but how do you ratify something
when you have reservations?
No, I am saying you agree to certain provisions. If you have reservations on a provision, you are going to ratify that provision, and you are saying in the process of domesticating that particular provision you are not agreeable to will not form part of your municipal law. That's what reservation is about.
Is a constitution minus certain articles?
No, we are talking about international.
No, I'm just asking a general question.
Actually, the standard in international treaty.
We were warned about having lawyers.
But these are things Dr. Honoria taught us, at masters in international law. But because you see, when you are talking about reservation, and I don't want us to delay on this aspect, when you are talking about reservation, when you have reservations, you don't sign.
Yes.
For me, I'm talking about the...
And once you have not signed, you cannot ratify.
Exactly.
So there is
to be part of the
goes back. Even when we agree on that part, I go back to the question I asked, that when you are going to domesticate,
you can't amend.
But we don't even have to discuss those international instruments.
Yes.
We have our laws. They are not totally relevant.
I wanted
our
us
debate.
to look at the issue of bail reform. It has actually happened. I am aware that the Chief Justice has issued an instrument on bail. And some of the concerns, and I wanted to read one concern that the President was mentioning. In the latest bail guidelines issued by the Chief Justice, and on considerations for bail, this is one of the things that the court should do. That when court grants the application for bail, the victim and the community shall be informed of the reasons and the conditions attached to the grant of bail as set out in the ruling. And I think what, because you see the President was saying the other day, that when you release somebody on bail, it's provocation. Isn't it? And part of the reforms contained in the guidelines issued by the Chief Justice is that the court has an obligation to explain why so and so.
Honorable Suman, there is a case for reform. I think we all agree. The process for reform is what needs to be explained so that it doesn't appear like it is a matter of the NRM caucus, or it is targeting people.
Some specific politicians.
There was a time when presidents were immune. Then the world changed. Presidents became mass murderers. Then they said we can remove immunity through the ICC.
Yes.
And a country like the US just decided to rubbish the whole thing, but they are very vigilant in enforcing it against others.
And there was also time when you had opposition leaders and leaders of opposition parties that were gentlemen. We had such a time.
We will come back to that time when
we had such a time where you could.
We wait to see The NRM was not very gentle in opposition in the bush.
No, NRM has never been in opposition.
No, they were in opposition with machine guns.
That's UPM. NRM has never been in opposition.
No, but that
was NRM.
No, NRM has never been in opposition.
The characters were the same.
So I think this opposition that jumps on tables in parliament is very mild.
Gentlemen and ladies, we need to pick some of the messages and interactions from the viewers, and then in the next 20 minutes that we are left with, I need us to just touch on, starting with Chairman Mao, but that will come after the messages, touch on the memories that we should, you need to bring up to speed some of our young people who have been asking, who is this person called Chief Justice Benedicto Chiwanuka, apart from just reading about it. So let me read some of the messages. There is one from Boyo Robert Magufuli from Bale City, and he says, thanks for the show. I was happy when I saw NRM caucus rejecting President's proposal because it was going to affect all of us. Hope they do the same to other bills that are against the human rights. Thanks. Kisauzi Daniel from Nakulavia says, the issue is whether capital offense or not, bail is at court's discretion. This means that it's upon court to decide whether in a rushing manner or delay the presumption of innocence, or delay. The presumption of innocence still stands as against the offender. Therefore, the president's take is a political move and not judicial. Okay. Suba Dada from Ginger says, other than push for detention of suspects with delayed or no bail, government should push for faster processing of all that is necessary for a conviction. I think he's talking about, fair enough. He's talking about the process of investigation and prosecution. I am Kulo Anthony, lecturer at Ndeje University. Thanks, Charles, for the show. I'm inquiring, where does the opposition boycotting Parliament leave the House of Parliament proceeding? I think it's fair to tell him that there is no law that stops one side from moving ahead.
Parliament proceeds whenever there is quorum.
Yeah.
Yes. So if one side makes quorum...
And quorum is not partisan, it's just numbers.
It is, exactly.
Yeah. Maybe that's another area of reform. That there must be a certain number of the opposition present.
Okay, and from by Domboya from Isingiro, the president should caution police, most especially CID, to double their efforts in investigations, not bail, because the moment it goes through, innocent Ugandans will regret why they were born. Yes, you will see the day you will regret the day you were born. Your mother gave birth to you.
You want General Tafire to say it?
Yes.
No.
James Bond from Fort Porto says, even those who are given bail are again charged and rearrested after court proceedings. Let's not politicize issues, except let the government strengthen intelligence, CID. When the police summoned the Segrinyas, didn't they bring themselves to police? Then Kent Chigundo is my name. Defiling is also a capital offense. Should defilers also be given easy bail? Honorable Basalra, please respond. Hi Charles, Shamil from Tinda. Hussein should be aware that even if we increase detention time from 48 hours to 1 year, as long as the security organs are not well facilitated and trained to carry out investigations, we are wasting time, and exchanging ignorance. Bail doesn't solve crimes. Investigating does. Maybe this should be the last. I'm Mulongo Waiswa Martin from Jinja Mpumude. Hello, Charles. Thanks for the presentation. My opinion on denial of bail to capital offenders is if the suspect is found with some evidences, that one deserves denial. And if it's I'm that found with evidence.
There is no half innocence and half guilt.
And if doesn't, if isn't, should be
but there can be a prima facie case.
Yes, I think
so I think that's what is alluding
the person is talking about prima facie case.
If it's a court in flagranto delicto, there is some prima facie case.
Shouldn't be done politically. Thanks, Mulongo. And then Moses,
And environment, you remove with gadgets. You must be very careful.
Moses says, I'm watching UBC. Good topic, Charles. My thinking would be that President Museveni should work on corruption in police and judiciary. My understanding is that bail is not a constitutional right, but rather bail application. That one you're right, Moses. It's upon the discretion of the judicial officer, depending on prevailing circumstances, to offer or deny bail. I would really say the law has no problem, but rather investigators and trial judicial officers. I suggest we leave the law as it is and sort corruption in the two institutions. Fair enough. I think we have, we cannot exhaust it enough. There will always be an opportunity to discuss it, but we need to touch on what the day that led to all this discussion and that brought us to where we are now. Honorable Mao, status of the man Benedicto. What was it that? What is it that is relevant to our situation today about him?
First, I would like to invite Ugandans to read a book.
The Man and His Politics?
Yes. Benedicto Kiwanuka, The Man and His Politics.
I read it.
And also Lwangalu Nyigo's A Short History of the Democratic Party. We have had the longest life, but he wrote a short history. and
was the president's speechwriter for a very long time.
Yeah, you cannot write the history of Uganda without talking about Benedicto Kiwanuka. And it is a sad commentary that while in Kenya and Tanzania they celebrate the day for internal self-government, which they call Madaraka Day. Here in Uganda we should also be celebrating that. But also because of our tainted politics, we had 2 elections. Benedicto Kiwanuka was supposed to continue leading Uganda and receive the instruments from the colonial authority, like it happened with Jomo Kenyatta and Julius Nyerere. But for the corrupt colonial power colluding with the selfish feudalists and the opportunistic UPCs. With apologies to Charles, we are supposed to be gentlemen.
But you are stating historical facts.
Yeah, so we don't have the time to discuss in detail. As DP, we are still looking for the remains of our heroic leader. Benedicto Kiwanuka had physical courage. He also had moral courage. And I have had some comments about his decision to become Chief Justice, but most of the comments are out of context. We need to understand the context in which that decision was made. We hope with time we shall be able to explain to Ugandans, because I think many people are oversimplifying it, including the president. But we hope that next year when we celebrate his centenary, because next year he would have turned 100 years old, we hope he will get an appropriate honor. In many countries you would have a lot of symbolic things done in his honor, because he was a nationalist. He really wanted politics to embrace all Ugandans. He was a reconciler, despite the abuses he faced from the feudal powers. When the king was exiled, and when the king died, he traveled to London to attend the burial. And then he came back. Even when he was denied, you know, according to the formula of the 1962 elections, DP would have got 1 seat, at least, on the basis of the votes that were counted in the Lukiko.
You are not doing badly. You have how many now?
No, DP had more than we have now. DP was in government. That's something the youth also don't know. Ben Kwenuka was the first prime minister of Uganda. So, but because they just hated him with a passion, they knew that if they declared 1 vote for DP, that vote would go to Ben Kwenuka. And Ben Kwenuka in parliament would be lethal, because he was extremely charismatic. So we no longer own Ben Kwenuka as DP. We have given him to Uganda and the world. There's even a campaign to canonize him alongside Julius Nyerere. And we are happy when we see the judiciary celebrating him. He has become bigger than DP, bigger than Uganda, and he's a case study in many places. I traveled to the National Archives of the UK and read some of his writings. He was a man ahead of his times, and as usual with such people, he was ignored in his time and actively fought. But those who fought him are wishing they had supported him. And I think the only way, from the point of view of DP, our only request to the government is that it is time for a national truth and reconciliation process. You know, you have the president giving a version, then you have Idi Amin's son giving another version. So we think there should be a national truth and reconciliation process. The Odair Commission did not go far enough. So to avoid these accusations, counter-accusation, and stigmatization of political parties and so on, rather there should be understanding. We also need to actively teach our history. The Germans have done it. They tell their children, you know, we had a man called Hitler, he did this. They even have a memorial dedicated to the Jews that were slaughtered, reportedly over 6 million. As Ugandans, we should let people know our history
without shame,
and we should learn from it. Okay. So we are grateful that UBC today has dedicated a little time to discuss a giant of a man. We are very proud that he chose the Democratic Party, and he definitely has been the greatest leader, and we continue to ride on his reputation. So I think a better tribute from the president would be to support the National Truth and Reconciliation Bill, which is already drafted.
Okay. Thank you so much. Councillor Hussein, about Benedicto Kiwanuka, what do we take from your perspective?
No,
certainly you were not yet born.
No, I was not.
All of us, perhaps.
I was born, but I never saw him.
Yeah.
I was born in 1967, but because I entered politics so early, when they're talking of the old generation living, I'm included alongside President Museveni and others that we should exit.
No, yes, Charles.
And they have to keep protesting.
I think the takeaway really from the example of the late Chief Justice is for government institutions or for governments to continue guaranteeing the independence of the judiciary as an arm, so that they don't interfere with their lordships when they are making their decisions. They have protection before they make the decisions, and they have protection even after making the decisions. They are not reviled for the decisions they make. They are not killed, as happened to the former Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka, but that they have full protection of the law, and that we essentially all should have should always agree to disagree, but look at ourselves as Ugandans, country first, and then as individuals. That's I think what we should take. I don't want to repeat what Honorable Mao has said. I just associate myself with what he has said about it.
Thanks, Council Asuman.
I first want to consider the irony on that day that Mr. Museveni was talking about remove of bail at a function where we were remembering Benedicto Kiwanuka.
You are summarizing and you are quarreling.
Very ironical.
You are quarreling.
I found that the statements were really misplaced. That was a function for us to cement the rule of law, constitutionalism, and good governance. And there he was saying we should remove bail. I'm very sure the spirit of Ben Kiwanuka should have been very disturbed by the comments of Mr. Museveni.
But he still brought out the values and the lessons from Benedicto. The issue of
hence the irony
against the irony. This is what I'm picking as a journalist. What I saw is that the president was talking about when you kill, there must be punishment for that when you take innocent life. But also there was a lesson in the fact that he was talking about, you see, some of what could have caused some of the problems we have, interferences with our election systems.
I don't know why you are defensive of the president, Charles. I don't know
of the facts.
I don't know why you are defensive.
Go ahead.
Because if you are talking about the values he espoused, how come those values have not been pronounced in subsequent discussions? It's about debate. Then true. Obviously, I also found it ironical that the president was in one way or the other castigating the former Chief Justice for having accepted to become a Chief Justice. To him, he should not have served under the regime of Idi Amin. In other words, when there is trouble, escape
another Taliban
or run away. Which I also found very defeatist. But having said that, I think we all agree that Benedicto Kiwanuka was an epitome of justice himself. The fact that he was able to make very strong decisions during the regime, very difficult regime, speaks a lot about him, his courage and his character. And maybe perhaps it's only a challenge to us. If you are Hussein Kashiring and you are Chief Justice and the regime deteriorates, are you able to stand up and say, please, these are excesses? And for me, that's the challenge he leaves to all of us.
But the courts have done so. Can you conclude your point that the courts have indeed breathed life into the very things you're talking about? That they have given decisions that are against the sitting government, that they have condemned actions of the sitting government, and that they have even had enhanced salaries, and
that your government has sent black members.
No, it's not my government. You are an MP. You are more in government than me as man.
Your NRM government has desecrated the temple of justice you should also add that. Okay? So I don't want to fall into the trap of Hussein. I have said what I wanted to
You have already fallen.
Oh, you wanted to say, let me get out of the trap. Sarah?
Well, the late Benedicto Chwanuka is, really I want to agree with my co-panelists that he's a symbol of justice. Fearless, charismatic. And briefly, maybe what I could add in for the benefit of young people watching the program is that he was first arrested by Obote in 1969, then released by Idi Amin together with 54 other prisoners.
Another irony.
Yes, in 1972, and shortly after appointed
the man
Justice.
who released and appointed him.
And appointed him Chief Justice. And in the first months of his tenure, he used to sit next to Idi Amin at all public functions. Then as differences emerged, he started sitting behind in the first row, then second row behind, then third row behind. And his friends kept asking whether he was safe or not. And his response was that he didn't know also whether he was safe, but he told them to wait and see. I have it on good sources, you know, people who talked to his wife, that they indeed discussed whether he should go to exile, whether he should resign, because they knew death was imminent. Then that he responded that if he is the last man to be killed by Idi Amin in order for the regime to fall, so let it be. On that basis, I really wish that he could be canonized, like Chairman Mao has said, because I think he was a matter for justice in this country. The manner in which he was murdered, kidnapped, and we are discussing this in the event where the country has again, unfortunately, witnessed kidnaps of citizens and disappearances. And as we discuss this, some families are still looking for their members who were kidnapped during elections by this very regime. Yeah. Very unfortunate. So I think, to me, with the events of human rights abuses, and indeed I want to agree with Honorable Basarira that, you know, echoing a debate on bail controversy at that function was really a misplaced agenda, because you cannot be emulating a man who stood for rule of law, who fought for justice, who fought for some of the freedoms that we have today in this country, and you raise such controversy in his memorial lecture. It is also important to note that we do not know how to celebrate our heroes, because this memorial lecture was started in 2018, almost 40 years. Because it will be 40 years, I think, next year, after his disappearance. And it is also unfortunate that he never witnessed, you know, enjoyed a decent burial. Nobody knows where his remains are until today. So, in fact, when you analyze all these unfortunate events, Benedicto Chwanuka's blood is still crying in the ground. If we refer to the, you know, the first murder in the Bible of Cain, you know, murdering his brother, God called him out and told him that his brother's blood was still crying in the ground, and whatever he does on the ground will never yield results because of the brother's crying blood. So the question we need to reflect on as citizens is, where is Ben Chwanuka's blood? Is it crying in the ground? With all these controversies of human rights abuses, with all these challenges of administration of justice in our country, with all these challenges of governance in our country, can we do things that would ensure that Ben Chwanuka gets the right historical heritage that he fought for and sacrificed for in this country? And can we not let his death be in vain?
But Sarah,
I thought we were concluding.
Chief Justice Chwanuka, Benedicto Chwanuka, died for the rule of law and justice. and the NRM government has restored the rule of law. There are challenges, but there are milestones to celebrate in this journey.
Rule of law or law of rulers?
Rule of law. Rule of law and constitutionalism. There are challenges, but there are milestones to celebrate.
Charles, you kick out.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, gentlemen and ladies.
You have a sticker. How will we get home this one?
Do you want me to escort you home?
I will ensure all of you reach home safely.
He's breaking the law, moving beyond the curfew time. Now, which rule of law is he talking about?
Chairman Mao, Council Hussein Kashilingi, Council and MP Basalira, Council Sarah Brete, thank you all very much for finding time to come to the show. You know, one of those shows that you sit and in the 2 hours look very short, and you are learning new things. And but thanks for sharing with our viewers and the nation. From the team here, I want to thank all the viewers out there, especially those who take time to share their views with us, their opinion through messages and you know, on Twitter, on WhatsApp, and on Facebook and the different platforms that we have. Thank you very much. Keep it coming, and you can always keep the discussion going. This program is usually rebroadcast on Thursday. That's tomorrow at I think 10, between 10 and midday. So you can look out for it, but also keep the discussion going on online. To my producers, Morris, Bills, William, Fred, Ivan, Andrew, and the rest, thank you very much. And I want to thank the technical team led by Margaret and the others for ensuring that this program is brought to you every Wednesday at 10, between 10 and midnight. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Have a good night.
Sinuk Uganda Limited, in partnership with the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum UCMP, present to you the Sinuk Q3 Supplier Development E-Conference 2021 under the theme Opportunities for SMEs in the Development Phase of the Uganda Oil and Gas Sector. Panelists will include James Musherure, the Senior National Content Officer, Uganda Petroleum Authority, Matthew Chaligonza, National Content Manager, Sinuk Uganda Limited, Agria Shaba, Secretary General of Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, Veronica Waimagembe, Manager for Oil and Gas at PricewaterhouseCoopers Limited, Kato Jackson, Managing Director, Kato Contractors Limited, and Savinda Singhi Saini, the Director at Excel Construction Limited. It will be moderated by Tony Okao Otoa, the Executive Director, Stanbic Business Incubator Limited. The event will be live on UBC TV on Thursday, the 30th of September 2021 from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Proudly brought to you by Sinuk Uganda Limited in partnership with the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, UCMP.
I smile when I think of you, Uganda, my home. My home, I dance when I look at you, Uganda, my home. Oh, my Uganda.